Hey everyone, very happy and super excited to be here today. We will talk about how to make the best creatives for your hyper casual game. My name is Lolita, and at Supersonic, I'm leading creative activities, basically helping you guys to find the lowest CPI for your titles and kind of squeeze all the lemons from your games. Just few words about myself. In the hyper casual industry, I'm over 5 years. For a while, I was actually running user acquisition campaigns, activities, analytics, and was kind of on a number side rather than creatives. But creatives were always around. They're like very big and huge, I would say, and so impactful part of all user acquisition activities, especially nowadays. No matter how amazing your game, no matter how smart your launch strategy is, if you have, simply speaking, bad creatives, the game just won't be as successful as it could be. Moreover, of course, you can lose the prototype and eventually money. So it all basically led me to where I am today. And today it's Supersonic. I'm a person through whom each month a couple of thousands creatives are passing, which is basically a lot of data and eventually knowledge that are passing through our amazing team every day. And today, together with you, we will dive into all this. I will share the coolest and what's more important, proven with data tips and very important nuances that we face every day in our team. And we can say with confidence that yes, they are working just because they all were generated from a huge amount of data in cases. First, we will dive into some basics that are, I can say, kind of a must to follow. It's a key for moving on, because basically if something is wrong from this perspective, it just means that your game wasn't tested properly and your CPI could be drastically different. Secondly, we will dive into player psychology and discuss some actually very non-obvious nuances. And of course, I will share some outside-the-box tips that could help you with both CPI and probably maybe to explore some potential for your prototypes. Before we start, I wanted to share this funnel with you. I was asked once, what's the most important rule to follow while making creatives? And I actually got very confused because there is no one rule, so many things to follow, so many nuances for each genre. Each game is so different. It's very unique, very individual. But, many years passed since then. And one thing I learned, kind of a general advice that suits, in my opinion, all kinds of games. Think of your ad like a game where instead of 1000 seconds of playtime, you have only 30 seconds of playtime. Basically, while watching an ad, users go through pretty much similar main steps as while playing a game. First of all, it's of course visual part, what just catches attention during these very first seconds. Secondly, it's a gameplay part, which is the mechanic of your game. And by the way, it's most important part out of all, literally how I call it, the heart for both creatives and also, of course, the game itself. And emotional part, which is all these feelings and thoughts that users experience while watching and, of course, also playing a game. And as a result, you either lose a potential player or get an install and then some CPI. And the more factors you match and combine along this funnel, so the lower CPI you get, and more users you lose along this funnel. For instance, for someone, art could be too specific. For someone, gameplay is just not clear enough. For someone, the game is just boring, and so on and so forth. So basically, the higher CPI you get as a result, as less users reach this endpoint install. It's actually as simple as it is. So basically, that's exactly what I wanted to talk about today, how to minimize this amount of users who just skip an ad, and eventually how to not lose users along this funnel and get the lowest CPI for your prototype. Of course, all we're about to talk today, to discuss today, will be followed by cases of our already successfully launched games that you all saw at top chart. So let's just start. As promised, of course, we will start with some basics, the most essential things to follow. And as I mentioned, if something is wrong from this perspective, your CPI will be could be absolutely different. So you'll see on the cases, so stay tuned. So following the funnels that we have just discussed, the first thing users see is a picture. It's when users decide either to stay and continue to watch or scroll the feed and just find something more appealing for them. And using, let's call it like right colors, actually can ease to understand this process a lot, to understand game mechanic easily. First crucial thing to follow is, of course, good contrast. Make sure you have it between your main game elements, which are basically your characters, or any other assets, depending on the game, obviously. Platform with main actions, with your main gameplay, and of course, background, which is your environment. Keep in mind that contrast is it's not brightness or saturation. In case with, for example, background, it shouldn't be brighter than the rest of the gameplay. It just should have enough contrast if you compare it with the rest of the elements. In addition, think how can you use some simple associations from real life. It helps for gameplay to be perceived more directly by users, more easily, and so on. For instance, red is usually perceived as a very aggressive color, so why not to color in red obstacles or maybe enemies to highlight their danger? For not experienced users, it also can help a lot to explain game mechanic in a way, if you think about it. Again, well, we'll give you an example. Imagine a runner game with green characters along the way. And what's your main thoughts? Mine, that I should collect them to make some kind of a team. But if you color them in red, so automatically they will be read as some kind of enemies that you need to avoid or maybe beat or like do something with them. So it's absolutely different message. So I do recommend you to think carefully on colors you use, basically in order to not confuse users and cause needed experience from creative and actually game itself as well. Also, talking about hyper-casual audience, bright and quite cartoony colors in average show lower CPI. If you want to reach a broader audience, and I believe you do, because it basically means that you will get just more profit, so use proven cartoony themes. There are, of course, exceptions, and there are games with dark modes, too realistic thematics. However, in average, bright cartoony colors usually are just the easiest way to expand your audience and eventually get the lowest CPI. If you're lucky and you didn't lose this first attention, we kind of win additional several seconds while users decide either the mechanic is engaging for them to try it out or simply not. I'm 100% sure you hear it from like everywhere. However, I also do want to emphasize how gameplay you show in your videos is the key. It's like the heart of your creatives. Your game mechanic, control of your game, and game goal should be very clear for users. And this straightforwardness of creatives, you should kind of hand to users on a platter. And of course, the sooner you do it, the better. This first 5 seconds everyone is talking about, kind of magic 5 seconds, should provide users a full picture and answer like all the questions: how to play your game, how to control your game, and how to win your game. Also, important nuance: remember that you, as a creator, as a developer of a game, you got used to your game. So for you, it's kind of a piece of cake to play fast, to follow all the actions. However, try to think as a user who has never in their life played this game. So use the natural speed of playing. Do not speed it up on purpose. Only, of course, if you have some idea behind it. For example, it could work good for coloring games, where there is like just no need to explain slowly, step by step, how to color a particular object. But it's also very important to show a result. But it's usually working more like an exception rather than a rule. So in general, the natural speed just works better for a broad audience. Another thing, really actually like example you see on the screens. Uh, it's one of our hits, Going Balls, and the only difference between these two creatives is a way of playing, including, of course, different speed. Same colors, same environment, same skins, just played differently. Sharp and quite swifty on the left, and more smooth and then slow on the right. It doesn't mean you should play slow and smooth all the time, no, but it means that your CPI could be drastically different for different gameplay scenarios. So I strongly recommend you to try out these different gameplay scenarios, because eventually it's all about finding this, how I call it, sweet spot, how to play your game right in order to cause particular associations, emotions, and so on. I wish I could say, of course, there is one magic rule how to make very low CPI creatives, but it isn't. It's, of course, a combination of many parameters. If your creatives just look good, not clear at the same time, so you will get a high CPI and vice versa. However, even if the visual part is appealing, your gameplay part is engaging, there is still one essential part is missing: emotions. All three should go together if you want to reach really low CPI. And it actually moves us to the next part, player psychology and emotions. Um, First thing I want to cover with you is which leverage to pull in general. First, of course, is the scenario of the chosen level. You see how impactful it is. Look at the numbers. More emotions you emphasize, so lower CPI you get, of course. Same tip as for colors. Try to make some associations from real life to evoke these emotions. I know it could be challenging for some games. However, when I look on a game and think how can I impact on a game to lower CPI, I try to think from the perspective of the strongest human needs, like physiological safety, esteem, love, friendship, so on. Physiological, obviously, the easiest one to understand and then to follow. Everyone gets it. It's quite straightforward. However, the one I love the most is actually self-esteem. It, if you think about it, it basically refers to realization of personal potential, personal growth, self-fulfillment, and so on and so forth. And if to dive deep into it, you can relate it to literally any game, as esteem is very, very individual. For example, one person may have a strong desire to become a good parent. In another, the desire may be expressed creatively, for others maybe aesthetically, for others economically, and so on and so forth. So that's actually the beauty of it, because we basically can use the ones that we can simplest to reflect in our games. And also, what's really cool about it is that it allows users, gamers, for themselves to think, to choose how things should evolve, and kind of to use their knowledge, their intelligence freely, and so on. So which is also in a way, for example, explains why failures works better, since it's, you know, causing these really strong emotions to grab a phone, try for themselves, and play better, and then basically to fulfill this potential, to explore their potential, what we are talking about. And as you see, same goes to the assets themselves you use. If possible and relevant, of course, choose common themes and then objects. Try to associate them with real life and human needs. Look at the examples. First two creatives in the example have bright, nice, cartoony emojis, but they just do not evoke any emotions at all. They do not cause any associations at all. They're just kind of like okayish if you look at them. And the one with 40% lower CPI, referring to the strongest human need, physiological. Pretty straightforward, but still. Moreover, of course, will common emojis used, avocado and strawberries, which is also could be related to communication. And also, of course, fail scenario, that also triggers users. So basically, we combine a lot of things here. And remember, of course, the more factors you combine, more emotions you emphasize, of course, the better it is for your CPI. And also, I just wanted to say a few things regarding fails in general and how it's like impacting emotions and then this player psychology thing. In general, I'm sure you noticed in the market that like, most of the ads you see is all about failures. It's totally explainable. Way easier to cause these emotions through fails. Through wins, of course, it is also possible, but just require more variations to try in order to, like hack it and then cause the strong desire of satisfaction. So overall, failures are just kind of the easiest way to reach players' emojis, looking at emojis, emotions, and get good results from your creatives, basically low CPI. So let's move on. Really, really love this point, and I often see ads where it's kind of neglected. Make creatives playable and not watchable. What does it mean? It's actually quite a point that requires thinking to be taken it before. Just look at the examples and ask yourself, what do you see here? Of course, I will share my thoughts with you. So on the left side, I see just a weird moving couple. What is the gameplay? What's the goal on this gameplay? How to control it? How to win? How to fail? Like so many questions. I'm just watching on an animated cartoony couple. On the other hand, look what we have on the right. Controllers that explains how you play a game. A goal in the corner explains what should I aim for to win. Also, of course, whenever couple is moving not in a way how this goal picture dictates us, I as a user understand that now we are failing. So my point is try to minimize time when a user doesn't control the situation, doesn't like play your game while watching. As long as users just watch and not play, we lose contact with the player in ads. So the goal is, of course, to keep players' intention on the screen and making your videos, as I mentioned, playable and not just watchable. Another quite actually tricky and non-obvious thing is the right place for your playable characters, or actually any other object. Small thing, but as you can see, according to the numbers, very impactful. There are, of course, some things in life that we just used to do in a particular way. And when you play a game, there is, of course, a particular hand position you use while playing different types of games. So if it's, for example, a match 3 game or any kind of a puzzle game, so most likely you play with a forefinger holding a phone in another hand. If it's a runner game, most likely you play just with your thumb using a phone on the very same hand. So try to pay attention to where the main actions are happening and what's the most comfortable way to play your game. And of course, refer it to the creatives and make your videos also comfortable to watch and eventually play. So if you did all right and you followed all key points we've just discussed, so analyze the data you have. In case you're not satisfied with your results and you are struggling regarding what's next, kill or not to kill your prototype and so on, so use how we call it 50 cent rule. So realistically speaking, if you have higher than 50 cents CPI, and crucial note here, you're sure about your creatives, meaning they're appealing, they have good contrast, you've tried different gameplay scenarios, etc., etc. So realistically, it's quite rare scenario if you can decrease it drastically, more than twice. Again, if you took into consideration all these key points we've just discussed. If not, so please go back and give your game another shot. However, if you followed key points and CPI is around 50, 60 cents, so stay tuned. I will share some tips that could help you to decrease it. So, first thing, I spoil it a bit the next, but we'll talk about it in a second. So one of the most common one is different camera angles. What is essential here? Make sure that new camera angles provide users with kind of a new experience, with of course keeping clean and clear game mechanic, not ruining the gameplay and making it just not understandable. As for example, for some games, it just doesn't make sense to change camera angles. You shouldn't change it just to change it. It should look differently. At the end of the day, if it's not drastic enough, so you will get pretty much same CPI, or maybe like just a bit lower, or maybe even higher. New experience is just a key here. Try to be creative. Just look at examples of one of many cases we have with this camera trick, Mad Dog game. On the last creative you see here, we did a small trick with the camera that actually changed even the logic of a game. It feels like you're just playing for a dog instead of a boy. However, in reality, we still controlled a boy. I mean, when we were recording this video. So we just placed a camera behind one of the dogs to create this kind of a fake illusion in creatives. And of course, just afterwards, we put some fake UI and then just, to make it feel more real for users. So you see, we didn't change the code of the game. We didn't change the mechanic of the game. However, it feels absolutely different. We just kind of played with the camera a bit. Moreover, of course, you can go forward and implement it all to the game if it shows good results. And what we actually did for Mad Dogs, and of course, we did the mechanic real, so you actually can play for a dog on some levels. And the slide that I just spoiled it for you. So great actually tip, using various 3D thematics and environments for your creatives. New theme create, again, new experience for users. And what's more important here, it also help you to diverse your audience. Usually, of course, the most common ones everyone is using is like water, sky. It's something that everyone starts with, and it makes sense. But if you're struggling, try city, forest. It could be something more drastic, like closed environments, such as a room, parking lot, and so on and so forth. Again, try to test significantly different variables, providing this new experience for users. In case of going balls, CPI decreased by around 10%, which could sound like not a lot. However, amazing thing happened. The gender and age allocation began to look much more interesting for this title, which together with, of course, CPI improvements helped to scale the game and then make so successful with millions of installs. It also can, of course, help you in future to diverse a game, of course, and improve some in-game metrics. Again, something that we did for Going Balls. You can find all those environments, successful ones in Going Balls game. And just again, a small note I wanted to emphasize, even though environments create this new atmosphere, they emphasize particular emotions, remember, it's still environments. Don't make it the main focus, as it could really distract users sometimes. Keep focus, of course, on gameplay. Let environment just be environment and give the right feeling for users, and then make your gameplay more appealing, more engaging, maybe even more understandable, and then cause this basically needed emotions and atmosphere. And your look could be also related not only to environments, but any other assets. Just look how drastically different the first and the last creatives are. Like two absolutely different games. It's same mechanic, it's same logic, but just looks absolutely different. Which is, of course, could provide you not only with low CPI, but also the diversion of the audience and also, of course, the direction for game itself. In Tower Archers example, it's the game you see here on the slide. It actually helped with audience allocation as well, making it way younger than it was before. And as you know, it's a crucial thing for CPI as well, and then scale eventually. And a very nice tip, it can be even absolutely different theme for your game. Considering that you already have a code written for your mechanic, it's very easy to test those kind of different variables, different looking assets. This is actually something that could decrease your CPI really drastically. And of course, mix and match everything you have. A new theme along with a new camera angle can really make a big difference. Again, help you with CPI, diversion of your audience, and of course, game improvements. and even push, if you think about it, to come up with some fresh ideas for your next prototypes, which could be based, of course, on all the learnings you get from test results. And also, actually, there are a lot of cases where these creative-based features, after showing, of course, good results on creatives, were added to the games and doing just amazing. Nowadays, it's actually kind of a trend. And at the end of the day, we have good CPI, good in-game metrics, which is like a dream for everyone. Uh, I can talk like forever about it, but of course we are limited in time. So if you have any questions, please reach me out. I'm always for talking about how can we make things happen and improve your CPI. Just a few highlights is basically our role is to make sure that people from around the world want to play our games even before they downloading them in their phones. So pinpoint the most playable parts of your game. As at the end of the day, it's all about finding what exactly is appealing for users within your game and how you show it. Of course, use the data you collected and then go first and test. And as we always say at Supersonic, even if you fail first, second, and maybe even third time, anyway, keep applying what you learned to your next tests. It's really, really important, and it's really something that helps to move on. And of course, good luck to you all. Wish you very low CPI and big hits. Thank you very much.